do that. All right, good to see you, Sean. And welcome to this late-hour edition of the Ingraham Angle. President Trump delivered a State of the Union speech that hit every right note. He was inspirational about the future. He was sober about our challenges, and overall came across as pretty confident in his vision. And we've got it all covered for you from every angle tonight, and that includes a superb midnight panel of experts to evaluate the many high points and moving moments in this speech, and a look at the Democrats' response. They had five separate speeches responding. Okay. We'll also look at the shocking contrast and guess. While the president honored the victims of illegal immigrant crime, the Democrats invited their so-called dreamers. But first, some highlights from tonight's State of the Union address, and of course, the response.
I call upon all of us to set aside our differences, to seek out common ground, and to summon the unity we need to deliver for the people. We have created 2.4 million new jobs. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. There has never been a better time to start living the American dream.
And this nagging, sinking feeling, no matter your political beliefs, that this is not right. This is not who we are.
The stock market has smashed one record after another. We enacted the biggest tax cuts and reforms in American history. We nearly doubled the standard deduction for everyone. The individual mandate is now gone. It's time to reform these outdated immigration rules and finally bring our immigration system into the 21st century.
We are here in Fall River, Massachusetts, a proud American city, an American city built by immigrants.
We proudly stand for the national anthem. We have eliminated more regulations in our first year than any administration in the history of our country. Tonight, I'm calling on Congress to produce a bill that generates at least $1.5 trillion for the new infrastructure investment. And let's support working families by supporting paid family leave. We need only look at the depraved character of the North Korean regime to understand the nature of the nuclear threat it could pose to America and to our allies. Our nation will forever be safe and strong and proud and mighty and free. Thank you, and God bless America. Good night.
There are even some Democrats standing up at the end. Let's bring in our excellent panel of analysts. Corey Lewandowski was the manager of the Trump presidential campaign and the co-author of the huge bestseller, Let Trump Be Trump. Philippe Rannis is a former senior advisor to Hillary Clinton, and Fox News contributor Charlie Hurt is opinion editor of The Washington Times. And Fox News contributor Byron York is a reporter for The Washington Examiner. Gentlemen, it's great to see all of you. Corey, let's start with you. To me, this seemed like Trump was turning the corner from, the hard-charging, strong, but, it could be a little dark at times. And tonight it was optimism, the sky's the limit, we can do anything for America if we work hard. I saw that turn tonight, which I think is important.
Look what he focused on. He focused on reminding the American people where we were just a year ago, where the economy was and where it is today, with job creation, with unemployment for the Hispanic and black community at record lows, with consumer confidence at record highs. But also, he reminded our country that we still have problems. MS-13 is a problem, and we had victims in the gallery there whose family members were taken by these horrible people, and we have to do better. He talked about what he's done as it relates to getting rid of ISIS. 98% of the territory they covered is now gone. This was supposed to be a generational problem, is what Barack Obama told us. ISIS was a generational problem. In 1 year, 98% of their territory has been taken over. That's a lot less than a generation. It was a very good, positive, forward-looking speech.
Philippe, I thought it was a robust defense of American exceptionalism. The Democrats had a hard time standing at certain parts, which I thought was odd when we talk about African-American unemployment at an unbelievable low, and you can't get Democrats standing for that? I mean, to me, that looks like you're cheering against progress. And that's why I think this new poll that came out tonight is going to put the Democrats upside down. 97%, according to the CBS poll, just came out after the speech, of Republicans rated it well. 43% of Democrats rated it good, and 72% of independents gave it a positive approval. Overall, it was 75 to 25 approving of Trump's speech.
Well, I think what President Trump did tonight was he gave a traditional State of the Union address. And I actually don't mean that as a compliment, and I don't mean it as a
I wouldn't think so, Philippe.
But I don't mean it specifically snarky to President Trump, and I'll tell you why. The man that Corey got to the Republican nomination is not the man who has done it traditionally. He has not left any stone unturned, upended, just smashed. And that has worked for him. The State of the Union, it seems to be the last bastion that he respected as is. And I'll tell you why I think that might not have been the best thing. Your numbers aside, I think what you had tonight was probably, well, I'm not going to pretend to understand the Republican base, probably a lot of people who thought that that was flat. That was not the guy that they loved out there fighting. Well, they liked it. They liked it. But you know what? Never in the history of man has someone said, hey, remember last week when the president said this in the State of the Union address? And they're not going to next week. And I actually think that's a missed opportunity for President Trump, because he's a man who has taken everything, turned it upside down, and made it work for him. He let the State of the Union go as normal, and we're going to forget about it. All due respect to the CBS poll, whoever it is, we're going to forget about it. He could have and should have just been him, because you know what? You guys think he did great.
If he did that, Philippe, you would be trashing him on this panel.
But you know what?
Like, Donald Trump, listen, he was vitriolic, he was acerbic, he was acidic, he didn't bring the country together.
But you love when I go to my crafts fairs with my friends with their coconut juice and the kale.
Gosh, come on.
And we complain about him with our derangement syndrome. But they're not this week going to say, you know what? Are you one of the 43% who liked him? Because I'm changing my mind. It's just
Charlie.
But there is a line, I think, that a lot of people will remember in a week, and that is the one about all Americans are dreamers. And I think that was obviously a very important part of the message he was trying to get across. But my goodness, I mean, looking back at you know, when we were trying to predict how he was going to do this, of course the guy, he's such a great showman. Of course he is going to knock it out of the park in terms of using these props, these people, these American citizens that he brings in, you know, regular, ordinary Americans who do extraordinary things. Whether it was the North Korean guy with the crutches, which was just absolute gut punch.
We should show that. If we have that clip, I want to show the clip. I mean, we'll show it in a minute.
You know, I mean, and I think that was a very important, obviously a very important part of the message he's trying. He's trying to sort of put Americans on notice that this is a very serious issue, and that you know, that there are real consequences at stake here. But all the other, you know, the cop who adopted the baby from the meth mother, the meth addict, and the soldier who saved his buddy's life. I mean, these were really powerful stories that and we should have known that a showman like this would do a good job.
What I thought was interesting, guys, and Byron, I want to hear from you on this. We just came off of the Grammy Awards, where the celebrity culture was so, you know, incredibly anti-Trump, and everybody feels good by trashing Trump, and that's fine. And then he brings on, which other presidents have done, ordinary heroes, American citizens, or mothers or fathers who he mentioned, who just work hard every day to support their families, and ones who have sadly been brutalized by government failures to enforce our border. And I point to the MS-13 victims in Long Island, and those two families. Of course, I start bawling because I just couldn't hold back the tears. Watching those families, you don't often see the victims of that type of crime. You see a newspaper short article. But Byron, I'd like you to speak to that, because I thought that for women, especially watching tonight, I thought that was a really powerful testament.
Yeah, he was very effective in using the people that he had invited, and he used actually the two parents who had each lost a daughter to MS-13. He used it basically to introduce his immigration section, which I'm sure enraged a lot of Democrats. One thing that was kind of interesting, the White House had been doing kind of some head fakes during the day about how this was going to be a very unifying speech, and it really wasn't. You could not have a better example of the saying, elections have consequences. The reason Democrats were sitting on their hands during all of this is because it was clear that President Trump was doing exactly the opposite of everything they had hoped to do on taxes, on immigration, on foreign policy, on regulation, on judges, on every single thing. This was a very, very Republican Trump speech, which is why the Republicans were jumping up every 10 seconds, and the Democrats really, really had nothing to cheer.
I will say,
anyone saying that he wasn't Republican enough.
I will say this. All of these speeches are too long. I'm sorry, they should all be cut by 20 minutes, at least. I mean, they could be 50 minutes, 5-0.
And he could have.
Well, it's not like Obama didn't go on and on and on and on. I mean, they're all too long. This is not a partisan comment, Philippe, believe it or not. I'm just making a comment, my friend. This is Nicole Wallace earlier tonight. Corey, this one's for you. Let's watch.
I thought it revealed Donald Trump's deep and almost sort of sad obsession with being liked. I mean, he is always performing for the audience watching.
No, because people who are politicians aren't interested in performing. I'm not sure what politics she's been covering,
Which part did Nicole not like when he talked about the American flag, when he talked about the 12-year-old boy who was going back and remembering the soldiers who didn't have flags at their grave? Was that the part that she didn't like? Did she not like the part that we moved the capital and recognized Jerusalem now? Like, which part did Nicole actually take exception with? And the answer is there is none, because the message that Donald Trump outlined tonight is the message that he talked about in the campaign, which is we're going to put America first. I know it's a novel idea to some people. I know they'd rather live in another country. I know the members of the mainstream media said they'd promise to move if Donald Trump got elected. Guess what? They're still all here. They're still all getting rich, and they don't love the fact that we have a president who's now proud to call America the greatest country in the world again.
There was a part of the speech that I referenced earlier, Philippe, where the Democrats, it was palpably weird, I'm sorry, that they didn't react. I want to play it. It's the first soundbite on our sheet. Let's watch.
I call upon all of us to set aside our differences, to seek out common ground, and to summon the unity we need to deliver for the people. This is really the key. These are the people we were elected to serve. African American unemployment stands at the lowest rate ever recorded. And Hispanic American unemployment has also reached the lowest levels in history.
Philippe, the resistance is, obvious in those clips. I mean, they don't recognize him as a legitimate president. Would you concede that he's not a legitimate president? So they're just going to give up on the whole idea of governing. There's not going to be a debate about policy. There's not going to be a debate about, well, if you tweak the tax cut this way, would see 0.7% more GDP in the third quarter. They've dispensed with all of that. They are just not going to govern with the Republicans. That's my sense.
Would
and
you
watching
rather
that
them
reaction.
express their disagreement with him the way some Republican lawmakers did in 2009 to President Obama by getting up and yelling, "You lie"?
Oh, you mean one person, Joe Wilson?
Well,
not the entire.
Believe me,
caucus.
if one person today had yelled, "You lie," we'd have an 18-hour special edition of Laura Ingraham Angle.
But this is a serious point, Philippe.
There are honest
entire
disagreements.
congressional Black caucus sitting down for the lowest African American employment in recorded history. Now, I can see not liking President Trump, but why wouldn't that be something that you would applaud? And my point to you is, they're not afraid of him failing. They're afraid of him succeeding, because that means conservative populism of the Trump variety grows the economy and helps all people.
I'm going to go on a limb and say that the Congressional Black Caucus has a better insight into what's best for blacks than the four of us.
Unemployment, really? Okay.
For us, and that they, in total, do not think that President Trump has been good for their community. I don't think that they are sitting on their hands, as you called it, to make some kind of point to spite their nose on their face. That doesn't make any sense.
Charlie.
I just have a hard time thinking that, you know, this whole notion, and politicians, all politicians do this, but Democrats do it, I think, worse than Republicans do, about dividing people in race and color and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, jobs for everybody is good, whether you're black or white or Hispanic or whatever. Unemployment dropping is a good thing. And so I think that, I just think it's kind of a petty thing to have these guys sitting on their hands, you know, over. And in the end, it doesn't matter. I was surprised that there weren't more actual interruptions. But, you know, Trump threw out, and he did this throughout the campaign. It's why he won. And he did it tonight. And he came back to it at the end, where he said that above all else, they are all Americans. And this capital, this city, and this nation belongs to them. And it's strange that that's still a radical idea around here, but it is. And it's why people like him. And it's why people around here don't get why people like him.
Byron, returning power to the people, that was a theme during his campaign. But, you know, it was combative during the campaign, and I've been saying for some time, I know others have written it, that we needed Trump to take that turn to the more optimistic. And I think tonight, and I could pick out 7 or 8 points in this speech where you really started to see that, okay, we're focusing, the prize is for everybody. This is a land of freedom and opportunity, and if you work hard and play by the rules, you will get ahead. And I think it was high time that he made that turn. And I think that's where you might start seeing those numbers go up. You're already starting to see them go up, 43% approval, and his numbers on the economy are now flipped up the right way, according to the Real Clear Politics average. That's good stuff for him.
You're right. It is time for him to make that turn. And, you know, it's interesting. We've been talking about how unhappy and sour the Democrats look during this whole thing. But let's look at the Republicans here. They seem like a pretty happy group, very, very supportive of the president. Earlier in the day, Mitch McConnell had said 2017 was the best year for conservative principles that he had been in Congress. And you mentioned the CBS poll of near unanimous Republican support for this. I think that this speech was also very good for solidifying Republican support. He had it on the Hill, but it's always better to have more. So I think just as you look at the Democratic unhappiness, look at the Republican unity in response to this speech.
Look, the Republicans were really miserable for, you know, years and years during Obama. So it's like, you know, we all have our turn, I guess, being miserable sitting through State of the Union speeches. But we'd like you all to stay right here to get your insights on Twitter and Facebook. So I want to hear from you on both. And the remarkable number of Democrats who chose to respond to the president's speech. Stay with us. Coming up.
Bullies may land a punch. They may leave a mark. But they have never, not once, in the history of our United States, managed to match the strength and spirit of a people united in defense of their future.
Are we coming in? Okay. This was part of the Democrats' official response delivered by Congressman Joe Kennedy tonight. Democrats plan 5 different responses to the president's address. Why stop at 5? Sounds like a real unified party to me. They couldn't pick just one. They got to go to 5 people. That's very diverse. Well, that includes a speech by Bernie Sanders tonight. That's the one I'm looking forward to. And Maxine Waters tomorrow. We thought that was tonight. So if you have that many messages, do you really have a message at all? Let's go back to our panel. Philippe, does this party have a unified response to Donald Trump? Obviously, he's unified the Republican Party. It's interesting to look back a year and a half ago during the campaign. He's the most divisive Republican. He's ripping the party to shreds. I love looking back on those sound bites from some of our friends on the other cable channels. He's unified the party unlike anyone I've seen since maybe right after 2001 or maybe Reagan.
Tax cuts will do that. I do want to take issue, though, with your numbers. You said there were 5 Democrats. I think there are 4. I'm not going to count Bernie as
Oh, well,
an actual Democrat.
Fair point.
I have to say that so that I get hit from both sides tonight when I get home.
That's fine. I'll give you that. Okay.
You know, people have different messages, but you know what? 10 people can talk, and no one's going to get the attention the president does on the night of the State of the Union.
Yeah, I always think the response.
Well, but it's a bit of, unless you need some more water and lean over, like.
Oh, that was embarrassing.
That was embarrassing.
Remember when Bobby Jindal sashayed out? Remember that weird walk? God bless him.
People are going to be talking more about why was there a car with a hood open behind him.
He was sweating a lot. The sweat is hard. Maybe it's odd because it was Nixon Kennedy, and Nixon was sweating. In this case, it was the Kennedy sweat. It was interesting.
They were Republicans. You're saying it, not me.
But it's strange. I mean, you know, for the Democrats to trot out a young, new, fresh face.
12. How old is he?
And but his name is Joe Kennedy. That's their fresh face.
I thought they said the dynasties aren't a good thing. They want to get rid of.
They're terrible.
Get past the Clintons, get past the Bushes.
Obviously.
Who would you guys have put out?
I'd put Kamala Harris. Someone. I would have put her out there. I think she's interesting. She's an interesting person. But I don't know. Joe Kennedy. He looked like he went to too many Tony Robbins seminars or something. There was a lot of stresses on the wrong words, and it's hard because you've just followed Trump. I mean, it's really hard.
I never did understand what was the broken down car in the background for.
Unclear, because Fall River is known for its broken down old mills that closed down.
And a Bengals thing in the back. Maybe should have had a Patriots sign back there. I don't know. Maybe we're playing the Super Bowl.
I don't know what is going on.
I don't even know what that is. I'm from the area.
Byron, it's not fair though, because we've talked about, and I know you and I have talked about poor old Rubio or Bobby Jindal. It's Philippe said the water or the sashaying out to an empty room. It never works. So I think we should just dispense with them altogether. Just have some other type of event.
Well, you can't win, and the Democrats couldn't win, but tonight. But what they did do does tell us something about us and about them, and they are really deeply divided, it appears to be, and in kind of in interest groups. The fact that they would have all of these different responses, basically ranging from the center left to the far left, and that was all throughout the Democratic presence. I saw a tweet tonight about Representative Gutierrez, the Democratic congressman, who was wearing 3 different items of clothing to indicate
it was a serape? What was that?
He had a Time's Up pen for sexual harassment.
Okay.
He had a butterfly pen for the Dreamers, and he was wearing an African cloth to protest Donald Trump's S-hole countries remark.
I thought that was
there was a lot of virtue signaling going on there.
Okay, well, I thought that was some type of.
I'm not expected to defend that.
Other type of embroidered blanket. I don't know. We're not a walking billboard at the State of the Union. There was a Joy Reid tweet, just for the heck of it, because it's past midnight. Joy Reid tweet tonight. This is what it is. Okay, it says church, family, police, military, the national anthem. Trump trying to call on the tropes of 1950s era nationalism. The goal of this speech appears to force the normalization of Trump on the terms of the bygone era his supporters are nostalgic for. Philippe, does that sum up the party that now we're all upset when church, family, military, and the national anthem get mentioned?
Well, look, jokes aside, and back to the point I was making, is that it was a very traditional State of the Union address, and I think that's a problem because he's not a traditional president.
You made that point.
No, but here's why.
About your party.
But here's why: the words you use and the words you don't use telegraph to the government, to the people, what your priorities are. And I think the point of what he didn't say is important. Corey was mentioning, and you were saying that he really put America first. I think he put the threats we faced last or not at all. And everyone's going to jump on me the minute I say Russia, but let's forget about the memo and all that. Greg Pompeo, President Trump's CIA director, said Russians are going to screw with us. Sorry, Mike Pompeo. Yeah. Mike Pompeo is going to screw with us. Russia's going to screw with us in November in 2018. This is the position of the intelligence agencies. Why does the President of the United States not say that we will not tolerate that? If Iran were going to screw around with our elections, it would have been in the speech. If North Korea was going to be in the speech, why wasn't it?
I'll just. That's a fair point. I think I might have thrown that in there. My question to you is, and I don't remember, and I might be wrong, did Barack Obama reference the 50 million personnel files that China stole from the Office of Personnel Management, among them mine and many others, and their cyber spying, their stealing of supercomputing technology, their stealing of our intellectual property, challenging us at every level? Russia's economy is smaller than the size of France. China has a larger standing army than ours right now, Philippe.
Russia buzzed one of our planes 5 feet away with the fighter.
China threatens us at every turn, all around the world, all the time.
Why is it either or?
Because
why does Russia not get a mention?
Because you're obsessing on it for a reason for political expedience. My point is,
I'm obsessing on it because I don't like the Russians thinking they can screw around with our election.
I don't recall your party being obsessed with the Soviet Union when it was the Soviet Union. They were. This is détente central with the Democrat Party. That's all we wanted. But now it's Russia, Russia, Russia. That's all you guys can say, because otherwise you have to talk about why the economy is doing well, why consumer confidence is up, why business investment is up, and why this president is actually instilling an American exceptionalism that I think had been beaten down, frankly, for many, many years.
Why does that preclude protecting us from exterior forces?
I don't think he is. I don't think he is doing that.
Why not say it?
If he said it, you'd be on to the next thing.
No, I wouldn't, actually. That's the only thing I noticed tonight that he didn't say.
Every time the Democrats say Russia, I say China, and they never have an answer because China is a much bigger threat.
China. We can handle.
But Obama never did. He never really focused on China.
But we're talking about President Trump,
right? But you're doing it only for. I'm doing it. Mention it across the board.
We did have 8 years of the Democratic president who got kind of run over pretty badly by the Democrats. I mean, by the Russians, including the reset effort, which failed, and including the fact that everything that did happen under,
Uranium One and all the other issues. No one wants to talk. We never talked about Uranium One when Barack Obama was in office. Look, here's what the president talked about. Here's what he talked about: America, tax cuts, jobs, unemployment, security for people, infrastructure spending, God and your country. Look, that's what the State of the Union is about. It's about making people proud to be Americans again.
Look, and I think it's not easy.
Touting 90% of your party being happy with it and 40% of the opposing party not, I really don't see what the rah-rah is about.
But, Philippe, I think it's always hard to be the party out of power on the first State of the Union speech. Obama hit it out of the park on his first. I really think he did a great job in his first speech. It's not like as a Republican I'm going to like it, but it's not easy. And the country's doing really well. Trump has some problems to deal with, and he's got to deal with them. This investigation is an albatross, no doubt. But it's not easy to be the party out of power. We'll see for how long you are out of power. But
speaking of which, I'm not sure that performance tonight is going to help much in November. I just don't.
Well, if Democrats don't
the economy is going to help in November. And if it keeps going the way it's going, the resistance is going to be a resistance to progress. Guys, stick around to see how the two parties treated the immigration issue tonight. Trump highlighting victims of illegal immigrant crime. Democrats just highlighting, well, the illegals. The stunning contrast coming up.
My duty and the sacred duty of every elected official in this chamber is to defend Americans, to protect their safety, their families, their communities, and their right to the American dream. Because Americans are dreamers too. Unaccompanied alien minors, and wound up in Kayla and Nisa's high school. Evelyn, Elizabeth, Freddie, and Robert, tonight everyone in this chamber is praying for you. Everyone in America is grieving for you.
That was the president recognizing parents of two young women killed by gang members who entered the country as unaccompanied minor illegal immigrants. A number of Democrats invited those illegal immigrants, and they called them dreamers, to the State of the Union, and then they refused to stand to honor those parents. It's fine to invite whoever you want, but not standing for them, that didn't strike a lot of people all that well. Let's get reaction from our guest, Border Patrol Union Chief Brandon Judd, who was a guest of the president tonight, and political analyst Garland Nixon of the Maryland ACLU. Garland, your reaction.
Well, one of the things I thought we saw was a clear contrast between the two parties. Clearly, when you saw Joe Kennedy and you saw what the president said, it was clear that they're taking a different tack on the issue of immigration, and I think that's what we're going to see moving forward into the midterms. I think this was a kind of a fire-up, a move towards the midterms.
Well, what I mean, the president has put 1.8 million illegal immigrants amnesty on the table. The Democrats a week ago were willing to take 800,000 people getting amnesty for some kind of deal. Now the president has upped it to 1.8 million. So to me, I mean, the president tonight looked really reasonable and saying, let's compromise, let's get a solution, something that works for everybody. And Brandon, on that point, I thought, going back to the illegal immigrant victims of crime, the faces of the mothers. As a mother, when I looked at those, and not just the mothers, the fathers were both in tears. We don't see that often. We see pictures in newspapers, but the grief of a family for a failed government policy, to me, is infuriating as a citizen. And it's failed across Republican and Democrat administrations.
And it should be infuriating. I've had to sit with the spouses of agents that have been killed by illegal aliens and to see the pain that they go through and to have been there in the gallery, to have seen the obvious pain that those parents were going through because we failed to do our job. We failed to deport those people that crossed the border illegally that should have been deported, but unfortunately, because of loopholes in the catch and release policy, we let them go. Under the Obama administration, the Border Patrol went through 8 years that was just a complete and total catastrophe. And that speech today was absolutely powerful. It resonated with the base. It resonated with the Border Patrol agents, and we're going to get the job done.
We said earlier, overwhelmingly positive reaction to the president's speech. Said 97% of Republicans, overall 75% of the overall public, according to the CBS YouGov poll. 100,000 illegal minors were released into the United States since fiscal year 2010. 100,000. That number just came out yesterday. That's a stunning figure.
Well, here's the other thing, and that is
released back into the United States.
When you look at what was said today, and you look at the selective choice of people who are undocumented immigrants that committed crimes, and we don't talk about the bump stock issue and 800 and hundreds of people being killed and wounded in Las Vegas. We don't talk about the mistakes that were made that caused the guy in Texas to be able to shoot a bunch of people in a church. It feels like the Willie Horton ad. It feels like you're looking over.
So you don't think those parents deserve a voice? Their daughters don't deserve a voice?
But I think the hundreds of people in Las Vegas and the people in all the churches.
They get a lot of coverage.
Yeah, it feels selectively like, okay, here's a person of color, or here's an immigrant. Let's choose this person.
But if you're saying politicians don't pick and choose examples, I mean, I can tell you pretty much every politician does that. Van Jones spoke out earlier tonight reacting to this part of the speech. Let's watch.
Master salesperson. He used all of those stories really well. He was selling sweet-tasting candy with poison in it. What he said about those young people, he implied, and he did it deliberately, that Dreamers are gang members.
Brandon.
I'm going to be in Tucson tomorrow. I spend every day of my career on the border. I've spent 20 years in the Border Patrol. He's not selling poison. What he's doing is he's giving a solution to a problem that's been there for 20 years. My entire 20-year career, this has been a problem. He's giving a solution.
Carl.
I was a police officer for over 20 years. I retired as a major.
I knew I liked you for some reason.
Yes, but you know, look, I arrested people of all colors, and I could easily select any group or any age out and make the point that they're the problem, and I think that's what he was doing.
Guys, so good to have you in the studio late at night. Thank you so much. And you just knew Hollywood couldn't let the president speak without razzing him from the peanut gallery. The desperate attempts of some semi-celebrities to be taken seriously. Up next.
As we seek to rid ourselves of Trump, we must also cleanse our American soul of its white male privilege, its voracious greed, and its enforced ignorance.
There was an unofficial response from Hollywood last night to the president's speech called the People's State of the Union. And who represented the regular people? Such intellectual heavyweights as Michael Moore, Cynthia Nixon, and Mark Ruffalo, who offered this soaring rhetoric.
I know you haven't been at a country club for half a year, huffing down cheeseburgers, sitting on a golden toilet, waiting for someone to bring you a chocolate cake. You guys have been working for people. You've been working your tookus off, man. We're going to have the People's State of the Union.
Okay, no, I don't even know what to say about that. But he looked like a bum. First of all, he just came out of a garbage dump. Here to react, it says Harriet Dillon, but I think it's Harmeet Dillon, National Committee woman of the Republican National Committee for California, Democratic strategist Wendy Acefo, great to have her back, and Fox News contributor Raymond Arroyo. Okay, Harmeet, I love this because they do the preemptive People's State of the Union with a bunch of Hollywood celebrities.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm seeing is the Democrats, including the far left there in Hollywood, they're very confused how to respond here because the president had applause line after applause line of stuff that most people can't object to. Safer streets, lower taxes, et cetera. And so they're really reaching to the bottom of the barrel. And the ad hominem attacks are the last refuge of people who have nothing better to say.
I mean, sitting on the golden toilet. The chocolate cake.
Nancy Pelosi
First
made
of all,
a
these
crude
people,
remark
they need writers.
well.
They need writers. Wendy, look, I understand Hollywood just hates Trump. They hate everything about him. Fine. But doesn't Hollywood have its own problems, like declining box office, the fact that nobody's watching their award shows?
Yeah, you know, Hollywood does have its own problems, but that doesn't negate the fact that this president has been very divisive throughout his term.
75% of Americans approve of this speech, Wendy. How's that divisive?
No, but he has a 40% approval rating.
43%
He has the lowest approval rating of any president in modern history, and this is the State of the Union out of all of them since 1971 that has been boycotted by the most members of Congress.
You think boycotting
so there's
is
an
a good
issue.
idea?
I think it's part of the American democracy to have the ability to be able to
Wendy,
boycott.
that's not the point.
What we
That's
do.
not the question. Do they have a right to boycott? We're not living in Stalinist-era Russia. Of course they have a right
But
to.
that's the issue.
My question is, does that really set you up as a mature adult who respects forget Trump.
Well, there's better
the
than
tradition of the State of the Union isn't something bigger than what Frederica Wilson's feeling on any given day. I mean, her rhinestone cowboy hat notwithstanding, can't she have the grace to just sit and listen to a speech and put herself second for a moment?
Well, you know what? I'd rather have my Congress people boycott than have someone like Republican Wilson who yelled at Obama while he was delivering the State of the delivering the State of the Union. Yell, you know, you are alive.
I criticized him at the time. I thought
that's absolutely wrong.
I thought it was stupid. I thought it was stupid to sit
that.
down when someone says black unemployment is at a historic low. Raymond.
Well, this People's State of the Union made me laugh. I mean, when you watch Mark Ruffalo, poor Michael Moore, who just looks like, you know, somebody's grandmother.
Ann Lewis. I thought it was Ann Lewis.
But, you know, it almost was like open mic night at Berkeley, you know, at the Student Center. You were waiting for some kid to get up with the guitar and sing a Dylan song.
God.
There was no substance.
Oh, wait.
There was no real critique. It was just grievance and upsetment in the last election, which I get, but offer a solution.
For all of us who did, and we're embarrassed to say, like to watch Sex and the City, this Cynthia Nixon, this was just a heartbreaker. Let's watch.
We must make the firing of Robert Mueller a stark line in the sand. And if Trump crosses it, we must take to the streets as never before.
All these
I was waiting for
streets, you know.
I was waiting for Mr. Big to show up. Go ahead.
She looks like she's auditioning for a guest spot on Madam Secretary. You know, they all seem to be auditioning.
Go ahead, Wendy.
No, but I even think that that's problematic. I hear a lot of comment, even that comment that you made about Cynthia Nixon and what she's auditioning for. Like, we can't sit there and attack what they look like. Like, that's part of the issue that they're talking about.
That's all they did with Trump. They said he was fat. They said they made fun of Trump all night.
But we cannot sit there and then throw stones at them for what they look like. And just as a woman, and you sit beside you and you saying that, I was just like,
Wendy.
you can't say that.
It's all about
You can't say that.
You want to dish it out? Wait, Wendy, if you want to dish it out, let's not play the shrinking violet here. We're not damsels in distress.
No.
Okay, like, I know. It's, again, we felt this way when Obama was giving his State of the Union speech, which was a good first speech. It wasn't pleasant to be a Republican that night. And guess what? We lived through it for 8 years. And it's time for the Democrats.
The Republicans didn't boycott it. They were gracious and they did their jobs.
They were
it's their job to show up.
They also didn't have alternative.
One.
Except for the time they met on Capitol Hill right after he got elected and said we're going to do everything to undermine this president.
And we didn't have a poster that says resist. Anyway, Harmeet, Wendy, thanks for joining us, both of you. Raymond, we'll hold you over on Trump's most inspirational lines from tonight.
We want every American to know the dignity of a hard day's work. We want every child to be safe in their home at night. And we want every citizen to be proud of this land that we all love so much. We can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity.
State of the Union, we continue with Raymond Arroyo. Raymond, for all of the people in the resistance who are resisting him at every turn, where's the hate in that speech tonight? They say, oh, he's a hater. Where is the hate?
Well, I've heard that. I was watching some of the other networks as well. I got emails and texts from people in the music industry, folks in Hollywood, people who didn't vote for the president. They said things like, great theater, patriotic, epic. I think he moved a lot of people tonight. It was an inspirational and uplifting speech.
And the Scalise moment was a great one.
Oh, that turned the whole speech. He was kind of plotty until then. He talked about Scalise. He had a good time. He said, you're the legend of Louisiana. And he felt in his element, and he really found his cadence. And from then on, he was great.
And you know what I'll also say? He looked like he was enjoying it. When Trump looks like he's enjoying the moment, I think he owns the stage, and I think he did that. And it's great to see Steve Scalise tonight doing so well. All right, we'll close it out. We'll come back. Stay right here. Some news from the rope line tonight. No, not that type of news. President Trump told a Republican lawmaker as he was leaving the State of the Union that he will 100% release that classified intel memo written by Republican Devin Nunes. We await that release. And that is all the time we have tonight. Hit me on Twitter and Facebook. I want to hear from you, your reaction to the State of the Union. I'll see you on radio tomorrow morning, back here tomorrow night. Shannon Bream continues Fox's live coverage right now.